Bob Spacey with Superior Pool Solutions. Out here we're doing some tile shooting today. We've got pretty good calcium buildup on some dark blue tile. Haven't really had a chance to get in the pool and see what we're dealing with, but we'll check it out here in a minute. Usually it's chemicals imbalance. Sometimes you get a high alkalinity, high pH, you get some of that going in there. Too much calcium in the water. Our water here in Arizona, you could have one pool has a ton of it, the next pool doesn't. All depends from my experience of what they're doing with their treatment of the water. So first thing we do when we come out here to shoot tile, we make sure we got to drain the pool. We go 6 to 8 inches down below tile line so we can make sure that we don't get any blowback up into the tile while I'm shooting. If that happens, then it's very difficult to see what's going on with calcium, how it's coming off it. So we use a media blaster, and today we're going to be shooting with a fine glass bead. It's super fine. You're not going to get the rolling on the deck, so it's easy to clean up, it's easy to back up. We use a Portavac system, so it's not everything we do is completely self-contained. It doesn't go through the customer system. With the Portavac, what we do is once we get the pool is done, the tile's clean, we spray down everything, the top of the water, and what that does is it allows the glass to seep through the water and get to the bottom. Once we get that, we hook up our Portavac system. We just start to vacuum the whole system out, and we go from there. After that's done, then I'll retest chemicals. I always throw a new float in there with my sticker on it, and then we're out. Tile process can take anywhere from, I've done some really fast ones at 45 minutes, but then I've been stuck on some for 45 or 3 hours, 45 minutes. So just depends on how the tile comes off, how the calcium comes off the tile, how long it's been sitting on there, and how the chemicals are in the water. So today we're going to be using fine glass bead. This is a half bag, so we'll probably start with that. So I actually bought all this stuff in bulk. I bought like 3 pallets of it. Yeah, sometimes we'll shoot with salt, depending on the type of glass that or a tile that we're shooting. So if you have a high gloss or a glass tile, we'll shoot with the salt. The only issues that we have with that is that the product itself is very inconsistent, so it can make it a little challenging to remove calcium from our experience. But yeah, we'll use salt, and then I like the fine glass because the cleanup process is really nice with this stuff. We're going to be using the Mighty M compressor today. It's a 30-gallon air compressor that we have on this. So we got 30-gallon tank. We got the Kohler motor. The reason why I went with this motor over the Honda was because the ease of oil change. The Honda's a little bit more difficult to get to do the oil change and access, so we went with the Kohler after a lot of consideration. So this bad boy right here is a 14 horsepower motor, so we're getting about 31 CFM, so we're able to really crank this thing up when we have that difficult calcium line and crank through that tile. We can shoot block and really hammer down in it and get that calcium out of there. Other than that, it's gas powered. You just got to make sure you stay on top of your maintenance issues with that. Specs wise, that's about everything that we have. We keep this thing, we run it anywhere from about 80 to 90 psi here, and once we get through to the other section, we talk about the hopper and we'll talk about the dryer. That's where we can dial in our psis and get down to a lower psi, 30 to 40, sometimes even 20. We got this from PEX Coating. It's a Cox reel. This is a 200-foot reel, and we haven't had any issues with this at all. I do, anytime that I get like a small nick in it, you'll see it's probably in some longer sections, some black tape on there. I always try to keep my hoses looking real good and clean and protected when we have any issues, but 200 feet is a ton of hose. I haven't maxed this out yet. Hopper we're using is a Klemco. This is their Pool Light series, their Pool Pal series. It's a really nice setup. The way that we have this whole thing is we have upgraded a few things on here. We upgraded the wheels. That's an upgrade from PEX Coating. The valve down here is also an upgrade. Goes from your Chicago fitting, goes all the way over to my gun over there. It's got a carbide tip on it. So the thing that I like about this thing is when you're shooting, you pull that little red lever right here down, and then you can get in there and you're just shooting away, and then when you're done, you don't have to get out of the pool. I can just let go and then go about my business. Wade and I can converse on what we need to do with the pool, whether we need to change our PSI up, down, add media, give it a shake, whatever from there. So from the hopper, we use this dryer, and this is where we can really kind of control everything that we do. This comes from the compressor into here, into the hopper, but inside this canister right here, there's some beads in here, and what it does is when the air comes through, the air circulates through there and it pulls all the moisture out of the air, so we can get a real dry air. It doesn't clog up your hopper, and makes it real nice. Makes it a little easier to shoot your tile without the clumping and clogging in your line, because you clog these lines and it's a nightmare. If they want to get into tile cleaning, just call me. Yeah. No, it's I think the most important thing is find a mentor, to be honest. I couldn't have done it without you and Chris, and you guys taking the time to talk to me about equipment, and Chris taking the time to really help me and teach me how to do tile. Got to have that mentor. So other than that, there's not much info out there, so you have to do a ton of research and contact anybody that's shooting tile. I get contacted all the time from Instagram. Instagram is an amazing platform. I can't even believe what it's actually done for my business. It's amazing. So before I started thinking about shooting tile, it was actually something that was part of my business plan when I first started. I was in the pool industry for about 10 years prior to starting my company. Helped my brother off and on in the East Valley. But my wife always wanted me to shoot tile, and I was always very intimidated by not knowing what equipment to use. Cost, I knew the cost was a little more than like a normal pool guy is willing to fork out. But so my concerns were really the cost and the knowledge of not having the contacts or the mentor to help teach me how to do it, because there's some finesse to it, and you've got to be very careful with what you're doing. You got to pay attention to the tile and how everything is reacting to it.
Summertime half choke.
Protection should a couple things with when you're shooting tile that you need is, number one, I like to use a long sleeve shirt. It's got an SPF 50 in it with the hood, because then you can put it on underneath and it keeps the media out of your ears. Always wear a respirator and eye protection. Some guys will use gloves. I don't prefer to use the gloves, but you do get a little bit of abrasion on your hands and you can feel it at the end of the day. But other than that, that's really what I try to focus on, making sure that respirator's on all the time when you're doing it, so you don't breathe that media. Part of the issues we're having is we have really thick calcium on here, but this tile had been shot before, so when I started to go through, you could see where somebody had come in a little too hot with too much PSI, and they actually burned a line through the tile. There's a couple of spots over here that are really bad that I just barely brushed over because it had been just tore up so bad. So you got to make sure you keep your distance back. You really pay attention to what you're doing when you're shooting the tile.